Today.
Is that?
Oh, we're live.
Okay.
How come you're never in it, Margo?
You're the one
It's
doing
just that you're the
presentation.
person giving the presentation.
Are we ready?
Yes,
Good evening. I'm Mayor Ann Hansbeck, the chairperson of the Glen Cove Industrial Development Agency and Local Economic Assistance Corporation. This Thursday, March 27th, and we are holding today's IDA LEAC board meeting in the second floor conference room in City Hall. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Let us call the meeting to order at 4:33. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Tom Scott,
Here.
John Fielding,
Here.
Jim Capiello,
Here.
and Chairperson Hansel.
I'm here. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the special IDA LEAC meeting held March 13th, 2025, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion seconded by John Fielding. Are there any questions? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Tom Scott,
Aye.
John Fielding,
Aye.
Jim Capiello,
Aye.
and Chairperson Hansel.
I vote aye. Motion carried. Glenn Fangman, please provide the members with her executive director's report.
We're going to be meeting on April 8th with the IDA and LEAC. I anticipate that we will have at least a discussion of 115 Glen Street. There were some materials submitted in draft to the board today for review. We will also likely at least discuss Block F. And we may have some, further discussion of the villas. I'll keep everybody informed as we get closer to that date. Does anyone have any questions for me based on any materials that they received since the last meeting?
No, I do not. Okay, so this evening's finance report is also on our agenda as new business. Review of the financial statements for year ending 2024. The IDA LEAC Finance Committee members met with Margot and Ann on March 20th to review the draft financial statements reports for the fiscal year ending 2024. The draft report has been emailed to all members and is included in your board packets this evening. And Margot Zoldesi, please provide the members with an overview of the reports.
Good afternoon, everyone. First off, we went over the direct financials in detail in the last board meeting. I'd like to go over a summary for this meeting for the final financial statements. First off, I'd like to go over GIFLIC, the Glen Cove Local Economic Assistance Corporation. On page 1 is your charge account.
And let's let everybody get to the GIFLIC. So we're looking at, is it the GIFLIC financial statements and supplementary information?
It is.
Okay.
Behind the resolutions, correct?
Yes, in the back of
Okay, got it.
And what page, Margot? The first, page 4?
The first page in the GIFLIC financials is simply just the table of contents. First page.
So are you on page 4? Which page are you on? The table of contents?
Just as an overview, the table of contents. The breakdown of the financials is,
You have, yeah, it's this.
Are we looking at P.F. O'Connor Davies, is that what we're looking at?
No, it's Glen Cove Local Economic Assistance Corporation financial statements and supplementary, and yes.
Yeah,
That's it.
the first page has a table of contents.
okay, the package that you have is actually a set of the financial statements, then there's a management letter, and then the investment report. So this is actually the financial statements.
I don't know if I have the right thing here.
No, you do, that you're in the
My
right.
page says the auditor's report.
Here, you can actually have this one.
Is this the same thing?
Okay, on the,
Mine says it too, it's not.
oh, okay, on the first page is the table of contents.
Right.
So, okay.
You go to page 4.
So you want us to go to page 4?
Right, that's what
Okay,
Okay, I'm on page 4, thank you.
We're all on the same page, Margot.
okay, on page 4 is the management discussion, a brief overview of GIFLIC. The corporation's net position decreased by $384 from $93,908 to $93,524 from 2024 to 2023. The operating revenues decreased by $50,000 from $52,000 to $2,000 from last year to this year. Operating expenses decreased by $49,989 from $56,000 to $6,000 from last year to this year. So a summary of the operating revenue for Dickwick was $2,000. Administrative fees. We received admin fees from both the Regency and Taberman. Admin expenses are $6,000. That includes audit, legal, and admin fees. We had interest income of $4,000. So the beginning of the year net position was $92,908. The end of the year is $92,524.
Margo, that's primarily a function of the CMA retainer that was received in 2023 and not receiving a retainer for CMA in 2024.
Correct, but we also have, during the board meetings, I had accrued another $50,000 for 2024, but that will not apply till March of 2025.
Because RXR is not paying CMA's retainer fee yet.
Okay.
Okay. I just wanted you guys, I didn't want you to think like something drastic happened. It's because we did not receive the CMA retainer fee in 2024, but we expect to receive it in 2025. And we did receive one in
For
2023.
2024. We expect.
You expect them to pay 24's bill this year?
The contract expired in fall of 24. So technically, we wanted them to pay, okay, fall of 24 through fall of 25, let's call it. They did not pay in 24. The auditors were informed. They asked us to book it in 25, okay? RXR said they were going to pay it by the end of March of 25. We haven't received it yet, but we're obviously not going to receive it in 24. So we can't book it as an expense in 24.
So again, during the board meetings, I had accrued for it in 2024, but then the auditors made an adjustment to reverse it, and it will be paid in 2025.
Yeah.
Does CMA's contract with the city on a year-to-year basis?
They have an annual retainer for the Garvey's Point bonds matter.
So
Again, the last retainer expired. I think we discussed it at some point in fall of 24.
So they haven't signed the new retainer?
We will sign it upon payment of the retainer agreement.
And what happens if RXR doesn't pay that amount?
I don't think I have an answer for that at this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in summary, for 2024, the admin fee revenue was $2,000, admin expenses was $6,000, loss from operations $4,000, interest income of $4,000, the change in the net position for the year $384. If you wouldn't mind going to the next page, page 9. The balance sheet, the statement of net position for Dickwick.
So I don't have it.
I did two-sided, so if.
But this is page 9 on the bottom, page number.
Correct. It should say statement of net position.
It's all right, I'll find it, keep going.
Okay, the cash and equivalents for Dickwick is $6,000. Investments are $93,000 invested in the CD. The liabilities, account payable for $250 for a legal fee, accrued expenses of $3,500, audit fee, unearned revenue, that was admin fee revenue. So that explains the balance sheet. On the next page, page 10.
Hold on a second.
We're on LEAC, right?
Correct.
Financial
I
statements.
accidentally picked up, and we're on cash and investments.
Page 9.
Page 9.
I accidentally picked up the IDA. We gotta do something to give it a different look. Can I see the color?
No,
We have, the packets
can I ask you a
are,
question?
it's just, yeah, okay, it's this financial statement of, okay, on the other one.
For the LEAC.
We need to do something to indicate which ones are which for that. Okay, I got it.
Maybe because the addition is like a packet.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, there's too many packets, that's the issue, too. Or like
Right.
in one packet. Okay,
Okay, under asset investments,
Yes,
you said you have 93,000 and change invested in a CD.
correct.
What's the term of the CD?
The details are in the CD or on the investment packet that you have for Nicholas, and on page 15.
It's another
So
package.
the
too many packets, that's what I mean.
The issue
There's too
date,
many packets.
Well, also on page
Is this it?
15, no, also on page 15 of this same packet.
yeah, to make that easy, just
Yeah,
go to page 15.
let's go to page 15.
And the same thing applies to the IGA, the details of the CDAs, the CDs are also listed.
So it matures in immature.
Right, so we had to reinvest it at that
Okay.
time. But remember, this is only through year end.
Right, I know. Okay.
Okay, so it looks like your CD is for 6 months? Is that what
Right.
your investment term is?
Yes, right now we've been doing it either 6 months or 9 months, depending upon the
Rate.
higher rate, trying to get the highest rate possible.
Right, and how come we don't see what the rate of return is on the 93,000? Where's the interest income?
The interest, if you look at, the interest income for the year was,
Yeah, where is that?
the 4,130, it's on the income statement.
It's the aliens.
You can go back to page 4.
Page 10.
Page 10, actually,
Too much, too many packets.
So that was the interest earned,
4,137. Top.
Got it, how do you go 4 and up?
And remember, we're fairly limited in how we can invest. I think Millen explained that, I think in a separate conversation.
Okay, thank you.
It's the next one.
you're welcome.
It's another one.
So,
The interest expense has gotten a lot better
For the LEAC.
because the rates went up. Like if you looked at the prior years, the interest used to be small.
That's true.
Used to be 0.
Right, it's almost
It
nothing.
used to be very, very small.
Right, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so now it has kind of become more meaningful.
Too many. It's just confusing.
Okay, what page are we on now?
There might be a
okay,
lot.
page 11 is simply a statement of cash flow. And, if you have any questions on that, it's cash flow from operating, investing, and a reconciliation of the loss to the net cash from operating activities. And on page, if you wouldn't mind going to page 18, is a detailed schedule of the bonds and notes for different. So on there, the bond activity, the beginning balance, and then the ending balance is on there for Garbage Point, the Regency, and Seabright. So our beginning, well, actually, the original issue is 156 million. The balance at 1/1/24 was 198 million. The balance at 12/31 is 197 million. And then also on page 19 is a listing of the total tax exemptions versus the pilot. The pilots are what they pay, the total tax is the total tax because they're not the pilot, is listed on page 19. Keep in mind, this is also listed on the IDA financial statements.
So those are the exemptions, though. That's not
Yeah,
showing
those
the
are-
pilots because
Right.
there wouldn't be pilots for Garvey's Point, or there would be a note that the taxing jurisdictions didn't receive the pilots.
Right, it's also listed on the IDA financial statements in detail.
So there should be a note on that, no?
Well, it's actually,
These are just the exemption amounts, though, because they still pay the pilot. It just needs to be clear when we're listing the pilot by taxing jurisdiction that they didn't receive the money, it went to bond expense. But I think here on page 19, right, is this just listing the exemption piece of it, Margot?
that's only, it's not listing the pilots.
It's
only
just the
listing
exemption, then that's
total
fine.
exemption.
Then that doesn't need the note, that's fine. we went back and forth a lot with the auditors. I know the note was added where it needed to be added.
Okay, so in summary, the change in net position, the net loss for the year was $384.
Where are you now?
I just went back to page 4, the P&L. So just as a summary, the activity for the year, the balance sheet. And the $93,000 in cash, those are some of the important facts on the Glen financial statement. So if you don't have any further questions, I would like to move on to the IDA.
All right, so now we're going to find the same packet that says Glen Cove Industrial Development Agency financial statements and supplementary information.
It's on the top. Okay, you got it.
Okay, again, there were 3 components to this. You have financial statements, the management letter, and a detail of the investments. So right now we're just going over the financial statements. So the first page of the IDA, again, is the table of contents, going through the audited financial statements. We've got the independent auditor report, the management discussion, organizational chart, net position, cash flow, financial statements. We had gone into detail in the last board meeting. What I'd like to briefly go over is the management's discussion of the activity for the IDA for the year. So on page 4, the key highlights for the year ended December 31st, 2024 are as follows. The liabilities and deferred inflows of resources of the agency exceeded its assets and deferred outflows by 1.4 million. The net position, which reflected an overall deficit, increased by 112,000. Operating revenues increased by 73,000 from 214,000 to 288,000, representative of an increase in admin fees and escrow fee revenue. Operating expenses increased by 39,000 from 390,000 to 430,000. Keep in mind for the explanation here, I'm just rounding off the numbers. The net position, a summary of the balance sheet, is 2024 versus 2023. Below in the chart. So our current assets, well, total assets are 1.2 million compared to 1 million in 2023. Deferred outflows of resources, 177,000 versus 284,000 last year. Total liabilities, 2.5 million versus 2.3 million in 2023. Deferred inflows of resources, 2024 versus 2023, 285,000 versus 299. The total net position at the end of 2024 is 1.4 million. If you wouldn't mind going to the next page, page 5.
Hold on one second.
Sure.
Under your operating revenues, what is an increase in escrow fee revenue? What
The
is that?
legal bills, the third-party expenses,
Okay.
That are held in escrow?
with their third-party expenses that we pay through escrow provided by either the project applicant or an owner like RSR or Village Square or something of that nature. And so there were more escrow fees spent in this year. That would also include things like legal fees.
Legal fees, mini cap, but yes, it is held, the funds are held in escrow, a separate escrow account, as opposed to the operating account.
Okay.
So any legal fees or bond expense or anything like that would be in the escrow account. So we would get paid for that, and then the invoice would be paid, for instance, for legal. So that bill is not going to be paid until we get paid, let's say, from RSR, and then pay the legal fees. So it's an offset on the financial. You're going to see the revenue and then the expense, and those match.
Never mind. Okay.
It also includes things like the third-party reports we get done for applications and things of that nature as well. Anything that's not getting paid directly by us, but is flowing through us, like a traditional escrow account.
Okay.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind going to page 5. In 2024, cash and cash equivalents, restricted cash and investments accounted for $1.1 million, 94% of total assets. In 2023, they accounted for a little over $1 million, 93% of assets. Total liabilities increased in 2024 by $162,000 from 2.3 to 2.5 in 2024. So the below chart summary of operations change in net position is the activity for the year for the IDA 2024 versus 2023. The operating revenue, $288,000 versus 214, would have been an increase in admin and consent fees over last year, in addition to the escrow expenses, which we received the revenue and then the expenses are paid. So that was the difference there. Salaries and benefits, $194,000. Contractual expenses, $230,000, which would be escrow fees, depreciation expense, redevelopment costs not recoverable. That represents the administrative fees of the organization, such as office, printer, and travel, etc. The interest income on the CDs for the IDA were almost $30,000. So that is also in detail in a note and in detail with the terms of the CDs in the investment packet that you have. So the change in the net position for the year is a negative $112,000 versus a negative $157,000 last year. The note below, the majority of the agency revenues are derived from admin fees. In addition, total revenues increased by $72,000 from $214,000 in 2023 to $288,000 in 2024. On the next, on page 6.
Hold on a second.
Sure.
So you're saying that the IDA agency lost $112,000 for the year ending 2024?
That is, the revenue is $288,000. Yes, there is a loss. We need to keep in mind that some of these are for accrual entries such as pension, health, compensated absences. But yes, there is a loss of $112,000.
We didn't close any major projects in 2024. That's what happens.
You didn't close any?
We did not close any major projects in 2024.
Okay.
Okay, page 6.
And we expected to.
Yielded.
I'm sorry, where are you now?
Okay, just some of the notes, page 6 is the capital assets of the agency are fully depreciated this year. If you wouldn't mind going to page 14, this is a detailed balance sheet of the IDA. Okay, I'd like to go through the assets first, page 14. The cash and cash equivalents are $112,000. Investments are CD investments of $605,000. Accounts receivable $38,000, which is basically for escrow expenses. Prepaid expenses of $5,000. Keep in mind, under non-current assets is restricted cash, the $438,000. That is also listed below as
It's the capital reserve account for the public amenities on the waterfront.
capital improvement deposits, so that offsets is actually cash we're holding that is for the Garbage Point Master HOA Association for capital improvements.
It's for repair, it's for future capital, infrastructure and repairs.
So whatever interest is earned on these funds goes to the asset account and the liability account. No interest income is reported on our books for that restricted cash. It's being booked to the asset and the offsetting liability.
Is that the 438,000 invested short term or no?
Some of it is invested, but we also have some cash on hand in case we need to. Like we had a situation where we had to pay, it was something like 31,000 in repairs recently.
I think I was 13. 13? I'll go back and check that out, but,
It might be
whatever the
less.
small amount is immaterial. But the bulk of the money, is it invested short term or no?
it's either invested 6 months or 9
9
months,
months.
whatever the highest rate is.
Okay.
We staggered it so that there's some, there's some availability of funds.
That was a good move.
But just, again, it has a restricted purpose, so it makes sense to invest
But it's earning some.
more so, right, and that was also requested by the Gardens Point Master HOA.
For instance, the latest CD redemption is earning 4%, which was the highest rate.
Good.
Did that bank check get reissued to the HOA?
The bank said they were gonna reissue that, so we had signed that
Yeah,
notification that.
I was just asked
that was
today, yeah.
lost, but yeah, I'll follow up with that. And I also emailed RXR to make sure that, to let me know when they get a check. This is actually a bank check issued from the bank, not from us.
Right, and it never reached the HOA, so we need to make sure that, we actually had to sign, I had to sign a lost instrument.
Right. And again, this was a bank check issued directly out of the bank.
But that's for that small amount.
Right. Okay. In reference to some of the liabilities, that's for compensated absences, that will be for unused vacation and sick time, the net pension liability, and other post-employment benefits. Other post-employment benefit liability for the 934,000 is for the actuarial valuation of health benefits to be paid in the future. There are some detailed notes in the financial statements if you'd like more of an explanation on that. If you wouldn't mind going to page 15. That is the statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net position for the IDA for the year ending 2024. The fees and revenues, 288,000, operating expenses, 430,000, interest income of almost 30,000, change in net position for the year of negative 112,000. The end of the year, the net position is 1.4 million. Page 16 is a statement of cash flows from operating, investing, and if you wouldn't mind going to page 39 and 40, that is a summary.
39 and 40, Margo?
Yes, it's actually split into 2 pages. Here's a schedule of bonds and notes. We have the original issue. We have the balance at 1/1/24, and then on page 40, we have the ending balance on page 40. So the balance at 1/1/24 was 166 million to round that off. The balance at 12/31/24 is 165 million. The difference was subtracting out the retired amount in 2024 and our accrued interest.
If you recall, the stabilization fund was used to redeem around $5.3 million of one of the series of the Gardens Point bonds. And as Margo said, then there was an accrued interest added on.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind going to page 41 to 44, that information is a summary of schedule of indebtedness, trade lease transactions for all the IDA projects, including Fairfield, Glen Cove, CB, the Donato Group, Fair Housing, Samuel Pierce, RSR Village Square, Georgia Green, and Livingston.
And these are all the exemptions, correct, that are on that second page. These are all the estimated exemptions and the jobs.
Right, but keep in mind, page 41, 44, the total exemptions is on page 45 as well. So 45 is a complete summary for all the projects.
Right. And there's your note for RXR and Georgia Green. All actual pilot revenue received paid for bond expense. No pilot revenue was received by affected jurisdictions.
So the top half of the page is the pilot information. Keep in mind, RXR, Garvey's, and Georgia Green, as Ann just mentioned, all of the pilot payments went to pay for bond expense. And the schedule below that, the second half, is a schedule of exemption, which would be the total tax. Total tax had the pilot not been implemented. So again, we have the Regency, Fairfield, the Donato Group, Fair Housing, RXR, Capillo, RXR Village Square, Georgia Green, and Livingston. So this is simply just a comparison of the pilot information versus the total exemption amount. And there is a note below the pilot, all actual pilot revenue received paid for bond expense. No pilot revenue was received by the affected taxing jurisdiction. So on page 46, the next page is a summary by project, some of the updates for the year, and a simplified schedule of that project, pilot versus their exemption for the year. So you can see it side by side, the pilot versus the exemption. For instance, if we take the Regency, the pilot is for county, local, and school tax, is $502,000 versus the total exemption amount of $522,000. And also in the notes, we list the full-time equivalents listed for the year for each. So on page 46, we have the Regency, we have Fairfield, pilot versus exemption. And then on the move, on the next page, actually that is now terminated. The Donato Group on page 47, the pilot versus the exemption with a listing of FTEs as well.
You'll note 50 Glen Partners LLC on page 48. The pilot for 50 Glen Partners, as you know, ended. They have a pending new pilot that was approved by the board, but that is not closed yet.
Okay, and in reference to RXR Garvey's on page 48, there is a note on the bottom of the page stating the bond expense RXR paid $4.8 million. All revenue was used to pay bond expense, and the taxing jurisdictions received zero in pilot payments. Payments to MuniCap, and then some further notes in detail. If you have any questions on that, please let us know. And then RXR reported no construction jobs with a total of 50 FTEs retained and 65 FTEs created for a total of 115 FTEs. Right there, the schedule again, it's the pilot versus the exemption. And just to repeat, all actual pilot revenue received paid for bond expense, no pilot revenue was received by the affected taxing jurisdiction. And we have Michael Pontillo, the pilot of $61,000 versus the exemption of $353,000. On 2024, 5 FTEs were reported. The next one's RXR Village Square. The pilot was $194,000 versus the total exemption of $1 million. In 2024, they reported 49 FTEs created, 8 retained for a total of 57 FTEs. The next one is 135 Glen Cove Avenue, Livingston, 100, that's page 50, 161,000 of college versus the exemption of 356. They reported 81 construction jobs in 2024.
Who did?
Livingston?
Destruction jobs, I guess. not
81 construction jobs last year?
In 2024.
They were like destruction jobs if there were.
Well, keep in mind, there were several different contractors on the site throughout the year. I get quarterly reports and I get the annual report. And Kolka, who is the construction manager, reported jobs information.
Okay, in reference to Arcadia, that project is now closed. The next,
Not get a permit.
No, it was just sales and mortgage reporting tax exemption, and that project is now done. That really should be removed. Will be removed next year.
okay, the next project is Georgia Brook Green. The pilot was 63,000 versus total tax of 300, total exemption tax 356,000, and they reported one FTE retained for 2024. Okay, this does a summary. Going back to page 5, operating revenue, summary for the year, 388,000 in revenue. Expenses of 130,000, the change in net position 112,000 negative for the year. So please let me know if you have any questions. And again, the received information is listed on the investment package for the IDA with the detail.
I think do we need to move on to the goals and accomplishments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The what? Goals and accomplishments?
Are there any final questions for Margot?
Thank you for this weightlifting job.
So the IDA LEAC Governance Committee met on March 20th to review the annual goals and accomplishments report for federal fiscal year 2024. Fiscal year end 2024, as well as the confidential results of the annual board evaluation. The results are in your board packets. So Camille, those are in the packets, the goals and accomplishments?
Yeah, they're behind the resolution.
Okay, so let's just make sure everybody gets to them first. All right, so they're behind these two resolutions, 7A and 7B. I think it might be, is it those?
Actually,
These are 7A and 7B.
Yes, that's what we're looking at right now.
the three governance members.
Are they in the back of
Already
7A
went
and
through
7B or a separate package?
They're
It's the backup to 7A and
two
7B.
resolutions, and the goals and accomplishments are behind the
Okay.
resolutions.
Attached though.
Right.
Okay.
So to Camille's point, this board tonight is mostly made up of the governance committee that went through the goals and accomplishments in detail. So I will make this fairly short. Starting on page 2, we go through all of our annual compliance. Nothing of note. So performance goal number 2, and then that really starts on page 3. Talks about our collaborative and marketing efforts. And then performance goal number 3, to meet the economic and sustainability needs of the community through application of various economic incentives and programs, This really summarizes much of the same information Margot just went through in the audit reports regarding pilots paid, tax. It doesn't have the pilot and tax exemptions, but it goes through anything of note throughout the year and the full-time job equivalents. So for instance, the Regency reported 75 full-time equivalent jobs in 2024. It will note anything that happens throughout the year. So starting on page 3, going into page 4, is a summary of what happened with the Villas project through the end of 2024. We ended 2024, and I'll just read the last few sentences here. As of the end of 2024 on page 4, the project has a forbearance agreement approved by the IDA board with an extension through February 5, 2025. Various milestones were set by the board for the developer to fulfill in accordance with the resolution approved December 10, 2024. The City Council approved an extension of the building permit to December 2nd, 2025, and 81 temporary construction jobs were reported for the year. As you know, there have been updates with that in early 2025, but this goes through just the end of the fiscal year. Okay, this is mostly older information going into page 5 on Village Square. As of 2024, Village Square's available commercial space is fully leased, and they reported 57 full-time equivalent jobs in 2024. Let's go to page 6 for Garvey's Point. A total of $71,998,055 has been spent on the public amenities at the waterfront as of December 31st, 2024. Moving on to the brewery. The Garvey's Point Master HOA continued to manage the marina in 2024. As of the end of 2024, a change in ownership of the brewery property was pending closing with the IDA. Let's flip to page 7. End of the first paragraph on page 7. Finally, the IDA board also consented to the future conveyance of Block D, also known as LEAC Tungsten Lower Parcel C, from the IDA to RXR. The planning board approved the 2023 PUD amendment and filed a resolution on December 19th, 2023. The actual conveyance of the Block D parcel from the IDA to RXR occurred in summer 2024. I'll read this short summary of 2024 for Garvey's Point. Reported 147 FTEs in 2023. In 2024, a total of 115 FTEs were reported. All pilot revenue received in 2024 by the Garvey's Point bond trustee was used to pay bond expenses in accordance with the indenture. No pilot revenue was received by the affected tax jurisdictions in 2024. The IDA board consented to a change in trustee for the Garvey's Point bonds requested by a majority of the bondholders in 2024, from the Bank of New York Mellon, former trustee, to UMB Bank, the current trustee. Going down to Georgia Good Green, Block G, the affordable rentals, IDA, and also Block F, which Georgia Good Green has an approval from the IDA board to eventually acquire. IDA staff worked with Georgia Good Green on issues related to the closing on Block F throughout 2024, including the regulatory and intercreditor agreements related to the project. Georgia Good Green reported 1 full-time equivalent in 2024. Okay, I guess we can go to page 8, bottom of the first paragraph. A proposed fall 2024 commuter ferry pilot service was tabled by the City Council because of the subsidy required. The city was unable to reach an agreement with the waterfront redeveloper as the timing of the contractually obligated subsidy. Okay, let's move to page 9. Here's a discussion of communication of IDA programs. And then performance goal number 5, which speaks to the same live streaming of our meetings and other policies to ensure adequate time, such as weeks between the distribution of project materials, public hearings, and voting on project resolutions by the IDA board. And then on the final page, you see the summary of the confidential evaluation of board performance, of which 7 out of 7 board members replied. Mostly 7s. There are a few somewhat agrees, and then just one somewhat agree on 4 of the categories, and then the rest are 6 and 7s on agree. There are no somewhat disagrees or disagrees. Are there any questions on the summary of the IDA goals and accomplishments for 2024? Okay, I'm going to move to now Resolution 7B, which is the goals and accomplishments of the GICLIC, which are very much related to what we just went over for the IDA. So I'm going to flip to page 3. And as you'll see, we have an overlap in 2 out of 3 of the projects for the GICLIC related to the IDA. So the Regency is here with the same updates. Garvey's Point is here with the same updates I just went over. So let's go to the bottom of page 4, which is Tinkerton Schools. Actually, let's flip to page 5. Tinkerton School reported 70 full-time equivalent jobs in 2024. And as Margot went through in the financials, there's a summary of their outstanding bonds that were issued through the GICLIC. If I recall, it's about $7.4 million outstanding. And then if we flip to the final page, we have the same responses to the confidential evaluation of board performance as what was received for the IDA, which is mostly agreed with all of the criteria. Does anyone have any questions on the GICLIC goals and
Why does
accomplishments?
it say Tinkerman School High School? That's the middle school, right? They don't have a high school.
So when they submitted their application, they did combined cumulative jobs between the existing jobs at the high school, which is at the old South School building, and the new jobs created at the former Cole School building, which is the middle school. And this is just a summary that in year 1, there was to be 255 cumulative, year 2, 256, year 3, 257. The number that we're really paying attention to is the full-time equivalents that are being reported for the middle school, which was 70 in 2024. Okay? Okay, and there is no further business to discuss this evening, so I believe we can move on to the resolutions. Chairperson Hansenbeck.
Let me go back to my packets and mess. No, I'm sorry. I have an absolute. I pulled everything.
It's a lot of materials.
I pulled it all apart, and now I have to find the beginning. So just bear with me for a moment.
If you look for the agenda,
It's too much all at once. Okay, but I have notes. Okay, all right, hang on.
so we're on page 2, moving on to the resolutions.
I can't find my page, so just give me 1 second, right? I'm close, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is the, oh, this is it, right? Okay. Too much,
So now we're here.
way too much paper all in one shot.
Well, just for the record, the
I know.
auditor just sent us the final
I know,
audit,
it's just,
like 3
I'm
hours
I'm
ago.
shuffling
And I
papers
just
all over.
copied 4 reams.
It's okay, it's okay.
Well, Camille, you did a fantastic job.
No, I mean, like,
copying
I
points
agree with
together.
you, it's
It's just
It's
too
a lot
much,
of paper.
it's a
have
lot
a
of
summary,
paper.
but we can't.
Do the members have any further questions? If there are no further questions, do we have any more new business to discuss this evening?
We do, I don't believe we do.
If there are no questions, let's move on to resolutions. I make a motion to adopt resolutions 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D. 7A, resolution of the Glen Cove IDA approving the 2024 annual goals and accomplishments report and summary of bond performance evaluation survey for submission to the New York State ABO by 3/31/25. B, resolution of the Glen Cove LEAC approving the 2024 annual goals and accomplishments report and summary of board performance valuation survey for submission to NYS ABO by 3/31/25. 7C, resolution of the Glen Cove IDA approving the 2024 financial statements for submission to the New York State ABO by 3/31/2025. 7D, resolution of the Glen Cove IDA approving the, I'm on C, right? Approving, my ring doorbell's going, it's a distraction. D, resolution of the Glen Cove LEAC approving the 2024 financial statements for submission to New York State ABO by 3/31/25. So are there any questions about these resolutions? If there are no further questions, may I have a second to adopt resolutions 7A, B, C, and D?
Second.
Motion seconded by Vince Hartley. Will the secretary please poll the board?
Tom Scott,
Yes.
John Fielding,
Aye.
Jim Capiello,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hartley,
Aye.
and Chairperson Hansman.
I vote aye, so that motion was carried. If there is no further business, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion seconded by Vince Hartley. Will the secretary please poll the board?
Tom Scott,
Yes.
John Fielding,
Aye.
James Capiello,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hartley,
Aye.
Chairperson Hansman.
And I vote aye. So that motion was carried, and the meeting is adjourned at 5:24 p.m. Now I'm gonna get my heavy lifter and figure out which is for the next meeting.